and welcome to the Pit Stop, your fortnightly midweek rest area to refuel your drive. I'm Karen Commins. I'm an audiobook narrator and chief cartographer for narratorsroadmap.com, and I'm your host for Pit Stop. My friend Anne Flosnik is not with me today. I'm actually driving solo, but hopefully we'll still have a good time. Every other Wednesday, audiobook narrators who do more than narrate pull into the Pit Stop, and they're sure to inspire you to follow your interests and use all of your talents and gifts. This conversation will be recorded, so you'll be able to re-listen or catch parts you missed. Feel free to comment in the chat, raise your hand if you want to be part of the conversation. And I hope you want to be part of the conversation because I'm actually doing a picnic today. There's so many people traveling and at other events and wasn't sure who would be available. So I thought we could just have a chat amongst ourselves of people who have news to share, or if you want ideas about how to do things, or the sky's the limit. It was a picnic and you bring the topic, and I'm glad to welcome you all here today. Who would like to go first? You can raise your hand. You can type something in the chat. I didn't attend VO Atlanta, but I was a sponsor and I took stuff down there the other day, and then I had to go pick up the leftovers. There were so many people at the convention. I saw they had over 1,000 people, and I would love to hear anybody's experience if you were there. Also, APAC happened this week. The Audio Publishers Conference happened yesterday, I guess. I'm losing track of my days. And if you were there and want to talk about that, I'd love to hear about your experiences. There's a conference happening right now, the Flock Conference, where I've been this morning, and I'll be returning there after Pit Stop concludes. And so some of you may be attending that as well. So many things going on this week, and I'm just so happy to see all you here with me this afternoon. So does anybody have a topic you'd like to raise? Or I would love to hear from you. This is an open chat. I don't see any raised hands, and I don't see anything in the chat. So, I mean, I can babble, but it'd be so much more interesting to hear from all of you. So what's been going on in your world? Amy has something to say. I would love to hear what that is. I've sent you the mic, Amy.
I don't know that. Oh, okay. I haven't done this in a long time, so I'm forgetting. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Oh, terrific. Okay. I did not go to the events this week, so apologies for not continuing on that topic. And
no, I'm just throwing starters out there. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Actually, I was excited for this open picnic because I followed in some of your footsteps on trying to create my own path, and
excellent.
I have gotten stuck.
Okay.
One is, so I've been trying to get the rights to a book that was written in the 30s, and I've gone through kind of a crazy goose chase. And the last one that I went through, they told me the rights holder was actually UNICEF, and they hold the rights to the book.
Really?
Yes.
That's not an answer you'd expect.
Oh, no, that was like, I thought, what? UNICEF? So I wrote to their form. They had one of those email forms. So I did that, and I didn't hear anything back. And so part of me is like, okay, I need to look for an email address. I got distracted and I've been doing other things now. But have you ever tried to get rights through something by going through an email form, or just what do you do when you get stuck? Do you go to the estate or something? Because so the author has died, and even her family, her kid died in the early 2000s. So there's an estate, and so I'm trying to think if I should write the estate or try again with UNICEF now, or I don't know. What do you do when you get stuck?
Well, what a conundrum. And and a lot of these things do take time. So don't feel it almost sounded like you were like, well, life got in the way and I did this and the other. That's what happens. Life gets in the way. And these things do take time. And so don't feel bad on that score. It will just make you that much happier when you're actually able to do it. But
Hopefully.
but the email form, and I know you, when you entered it, you probably thought, I'm not going to have any success with this. And I would doubt that you could. I would go through the estate, because, and I have you seen my article, When the Author is 6 Feet Under?
I have a long time ago. I was going to review when I got back to this. But yeah, I will review it.
Because that goes into how I would look for people in the estate. But within UNICEF, if UNICEF actually has the rights, there's somebody in charge of publications, or I would look at their site, but I would also search LinkedIn for somebody at UNICEF.
Oh, I never thought about that. Okay.
Because a form probably is not going to get you very far, but an actual person would have a
Boy.
greater chance. Of course, they still may not answer you, or they may go, what? You want what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have another answer off the
No,
top of my head.
that helps. And I will look for it through LinkedIn or check out their estate and maybe try it that way. But I was like, I need to revisit this. And how do I go about that? And so I was excited for this little open picnic. So thank
Oh,
you.
well, I'm excited too. And that's such a great question, and certainly one that I have great interest in personally, because I love researching this kind of stuff. It
Yeah.
And personally, I would like to talk to the people with associated with the estate, because they would have the most vested interest, I think, in
Right.
having this work in audio.
That's what
Where,
I would think
although
too.
UNICEF, I don't know, UNICEF could, if they were using it for their fundraising ability somehow, that would interest them too, because it would be passive income as far as they're concerned if you license the rights, and then, because you would probably pay them in advance, and then once the advance is paid, at some point, once it's earned out, at some point you would be paying them royalties.
Mm-hmm.
So I would try those two routes, and um, going to the estate, I always start with the obituary. So if excuse me, if you know that the author's child has passed away, I would look at the child's obituary and see who their survivors are,
Okay.
because somewhere along the line, you're going to get to the end of the chain. I mean, it's almost like genealogy, it is genealogy. We're diagramming people's family trees to figure out who owns the rights to something.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Those give me some ideas and on next steps where to go. So thank you.
Well, thanks for coming with such a great question. And if you want to follow up after you look there, and just keep me posted by email, because I'd love to know how this turns out. And if I can think of some other approach you might take, I'd pass it on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, good luck with that. That sounds like a really exciting project.
Hopefully, we'll see. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much.
Sure.
And I see Sarah has her hand raised, so I am going to pass the mic to you, Sarah. Except I tapped the wrong thing. There you go.
Hi,
Hello,
Karen.
Sarah.
Hi, it's nice
Welcome to the picnic.
thank you. The food here is divine.
Is it? I'm glad you
Yes.
like it, because I'm not really much of a cook. I would pick up for the picnic.
Please excuse me because I'm quite hoarse from the past few days.
I can imagine. Where have you been?
APAC.
Ah,
Yes, I came home yesterday in time to drive my child back to school, and then there was a little bit of a whirlwind yesterday, so I was just like, anyway,
was it
not the
your
point.
first time, or have you been there
It was
before?
it was my first time in person. Yeah.
Oh, you
So I've
did
been
the
to
remote one last year?
yeah, the year before. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I just had a question about, and this is just me showing my I don't understand copyright laws and stuff. But if the work was from 1930, is it after the author has passed that something goes into the public domain, or is it? Because I'm
Well,
wondering if this book was from 1930, why it's not in the public domain.
well, that's a great question, and this goes back to Amy's book. I'm assuming, Amy, you've looked at has it fallen into the public domain? So that's a great question, Sarah. It's not on the author's death for books published in 1930. Books now, it's author's death plus 70 years, but copyright law has changed a lot over time. But in 1930, when that book was published,
It was
they had copyright for 28 years, and they had to renew the copyright by the end of the 28th year to extend the copyright. So that book had to have the copyright renewed by the end of 1958 in order to stay copyrighted, or else it'd be public domain, and then Amy could just record it today. And there's places to research to see if it had been renewed. And if they did renew it, then the copyright is extended for 95 years. And it's through the entire year. It doesn't change until January 1st. So if the book was published in 1930 and they renewed their copyright at the end of 2025, is that right? 1930 plus 95 would be 2025. So January 1st, 2026, that book would be in the public domain if the copyright had been renewed.
So the
And
renewal
if it,
goes back to the publication date and not from where they renewed it from?
right,
Okay.
yes. And this is for the period of books from 1928 through 1963. All have this requirement. And there's additional things too, because if they say they published this book in 1930, but they didn't put the word copyright or the copyright symbol, the C inside the circle, if they just published this book in 1930 and didn't have either of those things, which is called the copyright notice, it was in the public domain at the end of 1958, because it would have been at the end of 28 years, it would have fallen in public domain if they didn't do it precisely with the copyright notice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're amazing.
Well, well, and I was just talking about public domain books this morning, but it all depends on what's the publication date and did they renew it? Did they publish it with the notice, with either the word or the symbol or both? And if it had both of those things, did they renew it by the end of the 28th year to extend their copyright? So if they published it without either of those things, copyright expired at the end of 28 years and they couldn't renew it. If they published it with both those things and didn't renew it, copyright still expired at the end of 28 years. If they published it with both those things and did renew it, copyright runs through 95 years, but you actually add one to know which January 1st it's actually public domain. So for instance, all the books published in 1927 in the US this year, January 1st, became public domain. And this tells us books published in 1928 will become public domain, all of them. It doesn't matter if they were renewed or not. You don't have to do any research. They will be public domain on January 1st next year. So January 1st, 2023, no, that's this year. I've lost time. 2024, January 1st, 2024, all the books from 1928 will be public domain. So an enterprising narrator might look at that and go, and find a book published in 1928 that they really like. And you've got 8 months and 3 days or 2 days. See, I told you I'm losing track of time, before January 1st that you could record it, get it edited, and then you're ready to publish it the second it goes into public domain on January 1st.
It's brilliant. I bow down.
And I'll just say, where might one find a list of good books from 1928? Goodreads has a list of most popular books by the year, and this is really good because you can see what books people today still find interesting from that time period. So, like, I forget what was the number one book this year. It might have been Mrs. Dalloway from Virginia Woolf. I can't remember, and I don't have it on my screen, but whatever the books are that people still find good from that time period will be listed. And so you can just scroll down that list from 1928 on Goodreads and go, huh. So, like this year, all of the Sherlock Holmes books finally hit the public domain. Most of them had been, but there were a few that hadn't. The Hardy Boys, I think it's the first three books this year, became public domain. So you might see some goodies like that next year that, oh, January 1st, this is going to be public domain. And then you could just go ahead and record it now and be ready to go. Obviously, I get wound up on this and get excited. And this is I'm glad y'all are wanting to talk about these kinds of things.
I
We
really appreciate
appreciate
that.
that.
That's. I mean, I was joking with my husband because I just will ask a random question and he'll be like, "Well, Sarah," and answer it, and I was telling him about this, and I was like why sloths don't leave trees, and he was like, "Well, I actually know that," and I was like, "Come on." So I think you're going on the list of people that I just say something to, and you're like, "Well, actually."
Well, when I worked a thrival job with everybody's favorite government agency, I was in IT, and I was kind of the expert there. I'd been at it a while, and other people would come to me with their questions, trying to get help, other systems administrators, and I'd ask them what they'd done, and we'd try to figure out from there. But they'd come to me, and I told them then, and I still like to tell people, well, if I don't know the answer, I'll be more than happy to make up something. And your husband may be doing that too, so who knows?
Don't tell me that.
But what I just said about public domain, I'm not making up. And I try not to make up stuff because then you lose all credibility. People don't really trust you anymore. So I would say I don't make up stuff now. As maybe I extrapolate and come up with the ideal solution kind of thing. Maybe that goes across better.
I think you came across fine, but I think
Agreed. And it actually was published in 1937, and then it had another edition in 2001.
Okay, well, now this is another story. Glad you brought that up. That 2001 edition does not carry the copyright from the 1937 edition. So it's possible, and without knowing the name, I don't know, we'd have to do a little research, but it's possible that 1937 edition didn't have their copyright renewed and is in fact in the public domain. And the 2001 edition, the copyrighted material in it is only what's new for that edition.
I think that's true about what's new, is only because I think it was only the introduction that was new.
Well, so we might need to do a little more research, because if that 1937 edition did not have its copyright renewed, you can record it today.
Oh.
And you don't need UNICEF involved. You don't need the estate involved. And they won't get a dime of your audiobook.
Even if it was 1937?
If they did not renew their copyright. And one way you might check is, so in the 2001 edition, if you look on the copyright page, it will usually say copyright 1937, copyright renewed 37, so 28, so it'd be 1965. And if it doesn't say that, it probably wasn't. So it would say like copyright 1937, copyright renewed 1965, new material copyright 2001.
Oh, okay.
But that 2001 copyright does not extend to the underlying work. It had to, that 1937 edition had to be renewed in order for the copyright to still be valid. You've really got me curious now because I'm like, ooh, what is this book? I think you're going to have to send me an email with the name because I just got to know now.
I
And
will.
I would love it if we found out that, like, no, you could just go right ahead today.
I will actually do that.
Because that is such a boon, because you can do whatever you want to the edition that's in the public domain. And if we could find out that the 37 edition is, you're good to go.
Okay, well, it's complicated, so we'll see. Okay.
It's getting more so, but more and more intriguing with everything you say about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely want to know what happens. I don't need to know the name of the book, but I want to know what happens.
Yeah, we're all like, and then what happened?
I know it's better than a soap opera.
We'll see.
Yeah, this is a compelling mystery you've got going now.
Yeah, it'll be a hard book too. I'll email it to you.
Well, I can't wait. And I want you to know you can trust me. I'm not going to try to steal the book out from under you. I'm just curious and want to help you get further along in your quest. But I would counsel, don't tell people in general, because they will still steal it out from you if it's a good idea and they think they can make money. And just as an aside, there's so many choices in audiobook distributors, and that's a whole other conversation. But a lot of people like to go with Spoken Realms, and Spoken Realms has a project tracker where you enter your project and everybody can see what your project is. And so I know of instances where there was no interest in a book, and it seemed like somebody saw that, or they got wind of it somehow, but that seems to me the likely place. And then they jumped and did it before the original person could get it published. So I would just say, if anybody was going to use Spoken Realms or any other site like that where you have to enter your project, I wouldn't enter it until I'm ready to publish it. I wouldn't enter it at the moment that I think I'm going to do it. I would go ahead and do it, record it, get it edited, be ready to release it, and then I'd enter it and be ready to go. Because you just don't want other people to scoop you and take advantage of your ideas. And, because a lot of times whoever gets there first gets the most money.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good advice.
Well, and I see W. Warner Wrights has hand raised, so I'm going to pass the mic to you. And Tamara, you now can talk at will.
Hello, I just had one quick question about what you were just talking about.
Okay.
Just because this particular topic is always one that I am confused on. And you mentioned, as for an example, one book by the Virginia Woolf, and as I was listening, you were saying that if the original had not had its copyright extended, that you could record or publish the audiobook for the original. But what if if an updated version has already been done and there's an audiobook for it already published?
That's a great question. The great and one of the many blessings and joys of a public domain book is anybody can record it. And it doesn't matter if there's already an edition. So, like, for instance, say your favorite book is The Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. And I looked on Audible. There are over 90 editions of The Wizard of Oz. Now, some of them are just that single story. Some of them have that story combined with other Oz stories, or maybe even in another book entirely. People have done it as a podcast. And because it's public domain, that means its copyright has expired and it belongs to all of us. So anyone can do anything they want to with it. And if it was a book I wanted to do and somebody had already done it, I would still want to do it because my interpretation is going to be different from anybody's. And I'm still creating art and putting something out to the world. I'm still building my portfolio. I'm gaining experience with everything I do. So I wouldn't let that stop me if it was something I really wanted to do. But I mean, you got to be clear that it is in public domain. So like the Virginia Woolf book that I mentioned today became public domain on January 1st. And I'm sure there are probably already 5 or 10 of them now because people were waiting for it to be public domain so they could publish their own copy. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And I guess when you mentioned that book, I went to look at that book and I saw that there was already an audiobook release for it, and there's also a new edition put out in publication of a paperback on Amazon on in 2021. So that's what gave me the questions like, well, what do you do then? So since you're saying if it's in public domain, um, you wouldn't let that deter you if there were other people that already put out their version of the audiobook.
That's right. I would, if it was something I really wanted to do, I'd do it.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
Do
if
you?
I was just kind of lukewarm about it and there are already a bunch of other editions, I'd probably, this is me, I would look for another one where I could be the only or one of a few.
Mm-hmm. More of a standout.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's so many that are public domain that were published between 1928 and 1963 because they didn't renew their copyright. I saw there are studies that say about 74%, and we're talking millions and millions of books
Mm-hmm.
that are public domain, but you have to do the research to find that out.
Okay. Do you have a place? Do you have a site that we could go to if we, for the tools and for the resources to try to, as we are moving through this type of progress and doing the research, we can get information that maybe we don't have on our own?
That is, Tamara, people are going to think you're an audience shill for me because that's a perfect question. Why, yes, I do.
All right.
If you, the easiest thing I can tell you is go to bit.ly / Commins, Commins, and it's got to be a capital C, PDHQ. And those 4 letters all have to be caps as well.
Could you
So
repeat that?
I can. bit.ly / Commins PDHQ. And Commins is COMMINS PDHQ, like public domain headquarters. And the C and the P, the D, the H, the Q all have to be caps. And that'll take you to a blog post on my site, KarenCommins.com, called, funnily enough, Public Domain Narration Headquarters. And so I link to all my resources there. That's for public domain books. That's really my spoke of everything I've got, because there's some of it's on my site, KarenCommins.com, and some of it is available to members of my site, narratorsroadmap.com. But there's a lot of info on KarenCommins.com that's free, but it's all linked in that one article.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I
Well, I
pulled over to the.
appreciate you coming and having such great questions.
Yeah, I wanted to. I really, listening to that, and I've been in discussions before that I always left, um, still feeling a little bit confused on the matter of, when it's public domain and how long you have, and you cleared up a lot of information for me, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'm
Well,
gonna
thank
get
you
back in
so
my
much.
car and
Thank
get
you
back on
so
the road.
much.
Thank you.
I just realized I actually have the power here. I could drop a link to this in the chat, couldn't I? Why, yes, I could.
Thank you again.
Let me just, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I just put the link to what I was just talking about that takes you to my my public domain narration headquarters, where all my resources are linked. And so one of them is a article of links to help you find rights holders to the books, and that one has the ones that have the databases where you look up whether the copyright's been renewed or not. And then there's a lot of other associated stuff here that will be useful as you're looking into public domain books and actually recording, producing, and publishing one. Oh, so let's see. I was just reading the chat that Steve found out that ACX is now refusing new versions when there are too many. Well, that is really interesting, Steve. I would love it if you want to come to the microphone and talk, talk about it more. Can I convince you to do that? I don't see you raising your hand, Steve, but I'd love to talk to you about that because, oh yeah, created the ebook. Oh, wow. That is really interesting. But you don't have to go through ACX. You've got the book. You could publish it through somebody else, or you could combine that story with other Edgar Allan Poe stories or other horror stories that then becomes something new. Curie says The Raven is not a full-length novel, but maybe it seems to me you could combine both of those things. But that does stink. And I wonder if ACX, if a different person would tell you a different story, because we often see that happening. So I am passing the mic to you. There you are. You'll just have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for bringing me up.
Hey.
Can you hear me okay? I'm
Yeah.
out here in
It's good to
Battery
hear from
Park.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think I put most of my story in the chat there. I just, following your wonderful roadmap, thank you, the information about, that you had written in your article about public domain books. And so I followed that and I created my ebook and claimed it, on my author profile on ACX, or I tried to claim it, and that's when they said, nope, sorry, too many of them already exist. Because my original thinking was I was going to do several of Poe's stories separately and then combine them into an anthology. Yeah. And I might
Was
still just do that and skip the individual part, but I got busy with other books, and so I haven't been able to circle back to that. But yeah, I'm interested in listening to the rest of this conversation, and thank you for reminding me we don't just have to go through ACX. So thank you.
well, I'm curious, was this an automated message that you got when you tried to claim it, or did you have an actual interaction with somebody there?
Yeah, no, it was an email. So when you go to claim it and it looks like it's in processing, then you have to wait, and they email you and say, either okay, yeah, it's accepted or not. And in this case, it wasn't, and they gave me that reason why. So that's what happened.
I've never heard of that. I mean, I don't doubt you, and it wouldn't surprise me if they've changed their rules about this. But
They did
it's
say that this was
I'm saying I'm
something.
going to have to change what I say, because
Yeah, they said that
it
this
is
was a
true.
recent.
What I say is still true. You can still record it. You
Right, right.
just need a different distributor.
Right. Yeah, and that's probably what I'll do, or maybe try the anthology route. We'll see. But no, it did say in the email that this was something recent, that they were it was a new policy because they were getting too many people doing the same very popular books, so they wanted to cut down on that. So there you go.
Yeah, you could do an anthology, and I wonder if there's not a biography of him in the public domain. Like if you did a biography and then his most famous story kind of thing in one book. I mean, there's different ways to go. How long is that? the story of that? Do you remember?
The Raven. I think I had it at like 15 pages. It's very short, but again,
Okay.
other people had their versions out, so I thought, well, if they could do theirs, maybe I could do mine. But they had done theirs. I think the most recent one I saw was a couple years before, so this must be a recent update.
Yeah. And it could be, I mean, because it's more of a short story and or a novella. I'm not sure how long it is, but it's not that sweet spot of like 6 to 8 hours that they would rather sell. That's really interesting, though.
Well, my journey into public domain shall continue, and I will continue to listen to all the wonderful things that you, the queen of public domain, have to say about it. So thank you.
Well, thanks for stopping by and sharing that tidbit, because that's an interesting turn of events, and not one that we really like very much, is it?
C'est la vie.
I see a little conversation about the APAC premixer in the chat and about how loud it was. Uh, they are always very loud, and then people are hoarse the next day and they can't actually work. But it's one day a year, and I know everybody has a good time when they go to those. So who else would like to have join in the conversation? It's a picnic, so bring your own topic, whatever you want to talk about. If you've got news, if you've got like this where you're stuck with something, or you have ideas about something, or you just want to get something off your chest, we're here for it all. And I feel like I've been talking all morning, so I'm really eager to hear other people talk. I don't see you clamoring to rush forward, raising your hands, and uh, I feel like I can't see you. I can't grab you. If I could, I'd just grab your hand, say, "Come to the mic with me," and I hope. I see Sarah says, "What an inappropriate comment!" Too. Obviously, this is something else going on. Hopefully, not what I said. If it is, I'll apologize. Oh, I see Nathan has got his hand raised, so I will send you the microphone. And Steve, if you'll mute because there's music
Oh
in
yeah,
the
sorry.
background. Thank you. And
I was enjoying hearing, like, vicariously living the New York through Steve right now.
where are you? And I guess you didn't go to New
No,
York,
I'm in Montreal. So I'm not that far away, but like I think it's about 6 hours away from me, something like that.
but yet you didn't go.
Yeah, it's still kind of expensive, like there's the border crossing and the fact that your currency is double mine and all those things.
Well, I get that, and I didn't go. I'm in Atlanta, and I didn't go, and because, like you say, it's expensive, and I'm even used to the currency, but
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because like if
they charge
hotels, right?
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything costs more in New York than it does in Atlanta. So,
Yeah, so like if a hotel room is like 200 American, for me that's like $400, so like that's a big one for me. So I gotta plan for that kind of thing if I want to go. I'm trying next year. I want to go
well,
next year 'cause it'd be super fun.
next year I think they're planning for it to be virtual again.
Yeah, so if I
So you
can't,
just have to sign up for the thing, and then it's all over. They had a platform called Reattendance, and you would it was kind of like little Zoom breakout rooms, but it's all online, and so I think that's the latest plan.
oh yeah, so like it wouldn't be in person at all, or like just entirely virtual.
Entirely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the last couple of years, it was entirely virtual, and then they made the announcement that they would alternate years. So this year was in person, and then next year would be virtual again, which thrills me no end, because
Well, virtual is definitely easier for
all
sure.
of the joy and none of the stress and expense.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna actually ask, I'm gonna be putting together some new samples, and I was wondering if anybody had any input on like where they go to get them, like what kind of samples are the best in terms of like me personally, I like to do sci-fi and fantasy and like thrillers. That's kind of what I go after. So that's what I'd be looking for. But I was wondering if like any of you guys who have, you know, a ton of books under your belt and like work with publishers regularly, like if you have any tips on like what things publishers would be looking for if I'm to submit a sample.
Well, I do know they're looking for things that are shorter now. And I actually got to work with Hillary Huber on my demos, and I know she did a session at VO Atlanta, and they are selling the replay of VO Atlanta if anybody missed it. But she did a session on creating a killer demo, and if anybody knows about a killer demo, it's Queen Hillary. And so I haven't seen the replay yet, but I'm excited to see what she would have to say. But when she actually edited my scripts. I found pieces that I wanted to work on, and she cut the scripts so that they were very short and targeted, and they displayed something. Like if you have an accent and it needs to be like right up front, you need to have male female dialogue, you need to have narrative part because they need to know how you'll tell the rest of the story other than just dialogue. And she cut things out of the script that I really liked, but to keep it short, I think they're all like a minute or something. That she said, you just got to have it cut because we're not here to tell them the whole story. We're here to get them interested in hearing the whole story. So that was something that I really liked hearing from her.
So
And
almost
I,
like a trailer edit, like a trailer edit of the book almost kind of thing. Like, is that what you're talking about?
well, of the scene, I
Yeah.
mean, because you'd pick out a scene that displays something that you want to show off, whether it's you definitely need a male female dialogue, you definitely need narrative, first person, third person, and then to have these things labeled as to what they are. And I know Pat Fraley had posted something about samples, and I might be able to find it if I see Sarah's got her. I've got several people with hands raised, so I'm going to send you all the mic, and maybe you want to talk about this topic, or maybe
Cool. Yeah,
not.
because like
But
the
while
1 to
people
2 minutes
talk,
is
I'm
the
going
first
to
time
look
I'm
for
ever
that
hearing it.
reference.
I just, oh,
So I've also given the mic to Rich and Sarah and Chris.
I just wanted to tell you, you didn't say anything inappropriate. I did.
Oh, okay.
At APAC, I said something inappropriate to somebody because I was a quarter of a champagne in and just escaped the loud room of terror, and and now I think she's offering me a job. So you just have to say embarrassing things to people, and they'll
Well,
remember
apparently
you.
she didn't think it was inappropriate.
So she
So
laughed. She laughed real hard and wanted to make a doo-wop song about it. So
that
yeah,
sounds really good. That
so
sounds
it went
promising.
okay. Yeah, but anyway, I just wanted to assure you that you didn't do anything
Well, thank
untoward.
you. I will
You're
sleep better
welcome.
tonight. I will sleep better tonight with that knowledge.
Wonderful.
Rich or Chris, one of you go ahead.
Thank you.
That's what you were working on. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
All right, all right. So I'm at the airport, so hopefully you don't have any trouble hearing me.
No, you sound great.
All right, good. Yeah, so just trying to help answer or give some clarification to Nathan's question about samples. So there's different opinions, and it's going to vary based on different producers that you talk to, or your choices for your samples may differ based on the platform, uh, versus just uploading samples to your personal website. Because if you're uploading samples to a platform that may only accept two samples of say 1 minute length or 2 minute length, then you're limited. You're limited to the genres that you can represent, and in that case, you want to pick the genre that you most want to work in. And like Karen mentioned, select a sample that is going to represent what you can do in that genre. So front load it with, if you like sci-fi, front load it with something very specific, maybe an action scene, or just something that really represents that genre with dialogue. And if you can mix it up with male-female dialogue, that's great. If there's alien voices or alien names, try to throw that in there. Um, some producers actually like to listen to longer demos. Some want to hear, if you specialize in accents or a certain accent, they they may want to hear that you can sustain an accent for several minutes, rather than just one sentence. Um, so those are some things to think about. Um, uh, you know, I don't know if anyone else on this call was in the uh, Johnny Heller's Splendiferous workshop. Um, Sean Pratt was there, and Hillary Huber was there, and uh, everyone was there, and they gave their they each gave their opinions about this very topic. Um, some like to see not more than, say, 6 samples on your website. Um, and others say no, do more. If you do so many different genres, and you want to give potential listeners or producers an opportunity uh, to listen to all of it, leave that up to them as to what they want to listen to. Um, so um, just to kind of shorten this a little bit, uh, with regards to length, it's not going to hurt you if you have a sample that's 3 minutes or 4 minutes. If a producer only wants to listen to the first 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 1 minute, then they can stop at that point. But you have more to give them if they want to continue to listen. So it's not going to hurt in this case, unless um, the platform limits you to a certain amount of time. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm saying all this now, and uh, I've got to go back and revise uh, my samples. I'm constantly trying to revise samples on my website or on different platforms, but it can be a time-consuming effort, especially if you're listed on multiple platforms or publisher sites and you want to keep things fresh. And if you're working consistently, it can get time consuming to go back and try to change those things. But it's a it's a never ending cycle of improvement. So I hope that answers your question somewhat, Nathan.
And you made some really
Yeah,
great
definitely helps.
points. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it definitely helps.
And a lot of people are making other comments in the chat about this, about some of the things they've been hearing in recent days. And uh, to go along with what you were saying, Chris, I've just found the thing that Pat Fraley had written on Facebook, actually in 2019, but he was saying that producers they no longer want the demo that had multiple samples in it. So I think they're
Yes.
all consistently saying we need a targeted demo of a particular thing and label it so that it's they know what you're trying to showcase, like
Yes.
um, female French accent kind of thing. But
Yep.
don't have this. Back in the day, we used to have samples that'd be 5 minutes, and it would have 2 or 3 different excerpts in it, and we don't want to do that anymore because they don't
It,
have time. They don't have time to wade through it to hear stuff. Um,
Exactly, exactly. I agree with everything you just said. And I was just going to add, like you mentioned, Karen, how Hillary took your sample and um, eliminated parts that maybe made the sample drag on. Um, you know, if you're creating your own samples and you want to pull from uh, a book you've already had published, or material you've already recorded, that's great. Like if you already have in mind a scene that you recorded previously and you said, man, I really want to have that as a sample, um, that's good. You can go back through and you can re-record that if you want. Like maybe it was a book that you enjoyed, but um, you you have progressed since then, um, and you know you can do it better. Don't be afraid to go back and re-record it, and you can always also record new material for yourself. You can even make up a script for yourself if you think you can create some uh, really flashy scene with dialogue and action. You can write it yourself. There's nothing that says you have to pick from some already published material or written material. So you can get creative in that way.
Oh, those are great points. Thank you for sharing all that. In fact, as you said that, I was thinking that it's good as you're recording a book when you do an especially satisfying scene or something that showcases that you'd like to do more of this kind of work. Make a note or save a sample right then, so you don't have to go hunting for these things. And I think Anne Flosnik, who's not with us this afternoon, normally she is, but um, she'll collect samples. Like every time she goes along in a book, there's be something that's good, and she'll just keep taking little excerpts from books as she goes. So then she's always ready. And I love this because, like, if a producer wants to hear her French accent, she's got something recent. She can just say, oh, here you go. And it's important to know that more authors are being involved in the decision. And so they are, again, needing more concise, targeted samples that illustrate a particular thing or demonstrate. It's audio, it can't illustrate, but that demonstrate a particular skill, and then to have it named that way so people know what it is they're going to be listening for. So these are
So
wonderful points. I'm so glad you shared all that.
I'm just curious, you think the best thing to do then possibly would be like on our website, for example, you could have like accent category, and then you could have like, you know, all these different categories. So a casting director can just go click, immediately be brought there, find the accent they're looking for, like, and then that sample has a bit of narration, but also mostly that accent present. And then like you could do the same thing for male female dialogue, like all those kinds of different stuff. Like that is probably the most helpful for them now at this point.
I'm going to jump in and say yes, Nathan, based on what I've heard this past weekend, because your site is your control. Your site can offer a very easy categorical reference for someone that wants to know more about what you can do. But I'm going to echo Chris on a lot of things, and I also want to reinforce what we learned in Atlanta from both Hillary and from Scott Brick and Sean Pratt is that, and I think Kaylee said this earlier, it blows her mind because we can edit the text to make it say what we need it to say to reinforce those two character dialogues or that particular phrase of thought. You can clean that stuff out, and when you do that, that gives you an opportunity to put maybe a few more options on your website for the samples that you'd like to offer, but they're more concise and more appropriate. Now I'm going to go one step further because Audrey said, don't forget that there are people like authors, there are people like publishers who like what they hear and they want to go a bit deeper. So don't shortchange yourself by putting everything on your site at a small snippet. Give a couple of longer examples so they can explore you just a little bit more. Again, all things I learned this past weekend and just eye openers that I'm hearing reinforced with this conversation.
And you're right, it was Kaylee Kirby who added that in the chat about Hillary's comment of editing the copy, because it, as Kaylee noted, it's a game changer, and we can make it say what we need it to say. So I appreciate both of y'all bringing that to the picnic. See, we all get to benefit when people go out and about to these conferences.
Yeah, thank you a lot, by the way, for those of you who were at the conference and have shared that info because that's really benefited for us and I'm super appreciative.
Yeah, and if you can get the replay, I'm sure, like I say, that Hillary's presentation, well, and it's the replay of all of VO Atlanta. There's so much there that would be beneficial, but that would go further in depth into it, and some of the others would as well. We're coming up on 3:00, and so I wonder if anybody else has any comments or topics they want to bring up. Or are we all just munching on our fried chicken and enjoying the afternoon in the sun? We can pretend.
More like eating stir fry and sitting at my computer.
Well, I guess that counts. We'll let you have that at our little afternoon picnic. Yeah, this has really worked out well, and I just appreciate so many of you stopping by and sharing your experiences. And oh, Kaylee says she wasn't there, but she learned from Hillary before. Well, it still works. It's still uh, a good comment and great source. And like I said, if Hillary is telling you, you know it's the truth. But I just do appreciate everybody stopping by this afternoon and this really wonderful discussion that we've had. It has been so delightful to hear from so many of you and different topics. And Amy, I'm expecting an email about that book. I may not be able to sleep tonight unless I find out about that book.
Will do.
Yeah,
But
that was cool. I can't believe UNICEF had the rights for it. That's random and cool.
it is. It's I've never heard of that, but anyway, I am going to start packing up my picnic basket and blanket. But you're all welcome to hang around on Clubhouse, and there are plenty of other rooms. I don't know what's happening at the moment, but Clubhouse has been such a joy to be a part of, and so many good conversations happening all the time. But I do want to thank you all, because it is time to get the show back on the road. So I'm going to conclude Pit Stop at the moment. The recording is going to be available on Clubhouse later today, and I'll post it on Narrator's Roadmap pretty soon. But I do hope you'll take another road trip with me in 2 weeks on April 12th. Gosh, we're already entering April. But that day, we're going to talk to Allison Larkin, who, in addition to being a fantastic award-winning narrator, is also a playwright. So I feel sure that her story is going to inspire you to new things. And in the meantime, I hope you find joy in every journey and are living the life of your dreams. Thanks so much for stopping by this afternoon and having this really delightful conversation today. And I just appreciate it all. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon here on Pit Stop.